Read more mysteries. My great friend and editor Kathy Immers, to whom I first dedicated this book and later married, has always been a devoted reader of mystery novels. When I first met her, I thought, how curious that someone so intelligent would be reading mystery novels all the time. It was especially interesting to me because Kathy is one of the most literate people I've ever met. A quick thinker and a skilled professional writer and editor. Her editing of my books had been the one thing, in my opinion, that gave them the sparkle that people said they enjoyed. In my own ignorance, I assumed mystery novels were pretty light fare, hardly a challenge to the human mind. Now I have begun to change my mind. Not only am I peeking into some of the mystery books she has recommended, I have enjoyed Agatha Christie and Colin Dexter, but I have begun to find out more about what good mystery does to the intellectual energy of the human mind. Kathy has one of the most creative and energetic problem-solving minds I've ever encountered. I constantly marvel at her mental energy and perception because it stays clear and sharp all day and long into the night. I would often find my own mental acuity descending the evolutionary ladder as night approached, while hers stayed alive and creative. The person with the highest IQ ever measured, Marlene Vos Savant, recommends mystery novels as brain builders. Not only is this exercise fun, but it's good for you, she says. I'm not talking about violent thrillers or police procedural novels, but instead I am directing you to those elegant, clue-filled, intelligent mysteries solved by drawing conclusions, not guns. Vos Savant sees the reading of mysteries as something that leads to a stronger intelligence. If you try to keep one step ahead of the detective in an Agatha Christie or a Josephine Tey or a P.D. James mystery novel, it will sharpen your intuition. She writes in Brain Building. The Sherlock Holmes stories by Arthur Conan Doyle never go out of favor, and rightly so. Holmes's methods are brain builders brought to life. When people think of personal transformation, they don't normally think they can strengthen their own intelligence. IQ is something our cultural attitudes have always said we are born with and stuck with. But Vos Savant, whose IQ was measured at 230, the average adult IQ is 100, believes strongly that the brain can be built as surely and as quickly as the muscles of the body. So, the next time you feel like curling up with a good mystery, don't feel guilty or non-productive. It might be the most productive thing you have done all day. Think you way up. In some of my seminars, I like to draw a picture of a ladder on the board and call it the ladder of selves. On the very bottom, I write the physical. In the middle, I put the emotional, and at the top, I place the mind. We can move up or down this ladder by the sheer force of will, although most people don't know they have that option. By traveling up the ladder, past the physical, through the emotional, and into your mind. You have the opportunity to be creative and thoughtful. You can see possibilities. Many of us, however, never get past the emotional section of the ladder. When we are stuck there, we begin thinking with our feelings instead of thinking with our minds. If you hurt my feelings and I'm angry and resentful, I might give you a long and eloquent speech about what's wrong with you and how you operate. But because I'm thinking with my feelings instead of my mind, I'm destroying something with my speech instead of creating an understanding. People do this without knowing it. They let their emotions speak for them instead of their thoughts. So, what you hear is fear, anger, sadness, or other emotions put to words, but never creating anything. If you can picture this ladder inside of you and start to notice that you are letting your feelings do your thinking and speaking, you can move up. You can get creative and really think and then speak. As Emmett Fox says, love is always creative and fear is always destructive. Go ahead and feel your feelings, but when it's time to talk, let your mind into the conversation. Your mind is what motivates you to your highest performance, not your feelings. Exploit your weakness. Make a list of your strengths and your weaknesses on separate pieces of paper. Place the list of strengths somewhere where you will see it again because it will always pick you up. Now, look at your list of weaknesses and study them for a while. Stay with them until you feel no shame or guilt about them. Allow them to become interesting characteristics instead of negative traits. Ask yourself how its characteristics could be useful to you. That's not what we usually ask about our weaknesses, but that's my whole point. When I was a boy, I remember watching a remarkable tape dancer by the name of Peg Leg Betts. On the Ed Sullivan Show, Betts had lost his leg early in life, a circumstance that would lead most people to give up any dreams of becoming a professional dancer. But to Betts, losing a leg was not a weakness for long. He made it his strength. He put a tape at the bottom of his peg leg and developed an amazing syncopated tape dancing style. Obviously, he stood apart from other dancers in auditions, and it wasn't long before his weakness became his strength. Master fundraiser Michael Vassov has dazzled the development world by churning unappreciated staff members into great fundraisers. He too likes people's weaknesses because he knows that they can be turned into strengths. If there is a secretary in the development office he's working with, he turns that person into the staff's best listener. Soon, donors can't wait to talk to that person because she listens so well and makes people feel so important. When Arnold Schwarzenegger became a professional actor, he had a weakness: his thick Austrian accent. It was long, however, before Arnold incorporated his accent into the charm of his action hero personality on the screen, and a former weakness became a strength. His action became an identifying part of his character, and people everywhere began imitating it. One of my weaknesses early in life was my difficulty in talking to people. I had no confidence in my ability to speak and converse, so I got in the habit of writing people letters and notes. After a while, I got so practiced with it that I turned it into a strength. My letter writing and thank you notes have created many relationships for me that would not have been created if I would just focused on my signage as weaknesses. I have 4 children, but I didn't begin having children until I was 35 years old. For a long time, I saw myself as being older than normal to be a father. I worried about it. I wondered if my son or daughters would be uncomfortable with a father so old, and then I realized that this didn't have to be a weakness. I thought about who I was when I was 25 and what a difficult time I would have had being a good father back then. Soon I took this weakness to be a great strength. Then one day, while watching The Little Mermaid with my kids, I saw myself as the father in that movie. vigorous, strong, and wise, with flowing white hair. It was the perfect image. I now see my age as a major strength in raising my kids. The only weakness was in the way I was looking at it. There isn't anything on your weakness list that can't be a strength for you if you think about it long enough. The problem is our weaknesses embarrass us, but embarrassment is not real thinking. Once we really start thinking about our weaknesses, they can become strength and creative possibilities emerge. Try becoming the problem. Whatever type of problem you are facing, the most self-motivational exercise I know of is to immediately say to yourself, I am the problem. Because once you see yourself as the problem, you can see yourself as the solution. This insight was dramatically described by James Velasco in Flight of the Buffalo. This is the insight I realized early and written too often. He wrote, in most situations, I'm the problem. My mentalities, my pictures, my expectations form the biggest obstacle to my success. By seeing ourselves as victims of our problems, we lose the power to solve them. We shut down creativity when we declare the source of the trouble to be outside of us. However, once we say, I am the problem, there is a great power that shifts from the outside to the inside. Now we can become the solution. You can use this process the same way a detective uses a premise to clarify the crime scene. If the detective says, what if there were 2 murders, not 1? She can then think in a way that reveals new possibilities. She doesn't have to prove that there were 2 murderers in order to think the problem through as if there were. The same is true when you become willing always to see yourself as a problem. It is simply a way to think. Unfortunately, our society today is in the habit of thinking the opposite of I am the problem. Time magazine even ran a cover story called A Nation of Finger Pointers that made a powerful and persuasive case for the fact that we have become a nation of victims who sees the American dream not as a striving fulfilled but as unachieved entitlement. In the 6 Pillars of Self-Esteem, Nathaniel Branden writes, to feel competent, to live and worthy of happiness, I need to experience a sense of control over my existence. This requires that I'll be willing to take responsibility for my actions and the attainment of my goals. This means that I take responsibility for my life and my well-being. Before I had realized the full power of a self-motivated life, I spent a lot of years pointing fingers. If I didn't have enough money, it was somebody else's fault. Even my perceived personality flaws were somebody else's fault. I was never taught that. I would shout in exasperation. No one showed me early in life how to be self-sufficient, was a complaint I voiced often. But I was avoiding a basic truth. I was the problem. The reason I fought so hard to avoid that truth was that I never realized it contained good news. I thought it looked entirely shameful and negative. But once I discovered that accepting responsibility for the problem also gave me new power for solving it, I became free. Enlarge your objective. Here is another self-motivator that also must be used as an intellectual tool only. Take a certain goal of yours and double it or triple it or multiply it by 10 and then ask yourself quite seriously what you would have to do to achieve that new goal. I used this game recently with a friend who holds a position in sales. He came to see me because he was selling $100,000 worth of product each month, the most on his team, and wanted to somehow get to $140,000. I asked him to tell me what it would take for him to sell $200,000 worth of equipment each month. $200,000? He shouted. That's impossible. I'm leading the team already with $100,000 and nobody thought that could be done. What would you have to do? I persisted. No, he said. You don't understand. I want to hit $140,000 a month. And even that is so hard. I don't know how I'll do it. I finally told him the theory behind this game. If you seriously look at an outrageous goal such as $200,000, it will open things up for you creatively that wouldn't have opened up if you stayed looking at $140,000. He nodded slowly and reluctantly agreed to play along for a while. Okay, we said, but remember, we are talking about something that's impossible. Fine, I said, but if your life depended on hitting $200,000 next month, what exactly would you do? He laughed and then started listening things as I wrote them down on a flip pad. After he got through the ridiculous ideas like stealing other people's accounts and cooking the books, he began to think of more ideas. At first it was hard. I'd have to be 2 places at once, he said. I would have to make twice as many presentations as I am making. I'd have to present to 2 clients at once. Then it hit him. All of a sudden, he got the idea that he might be able to stage a large presentation of his product with a number of clients in the room at one time. I could rent a room at a hotel and have 20 people in for coffee and donuts. And I could make a big deal out of it, he said. A number of other ideas came to him, ways to combine his cold calling with his travel time, ways to utilize email as a sales tool, how to use the administrative staff better, and ways to expand his contracts so that they would cover longer periods of time for a higher original fee, but at a lower overall rate. Idea after idea came to him while I wrote furiously on the pad. All of the ideas were a result of his thinking big. How would I sell $200,000 if I absolutely had to? He surpassed his goal of $140,000 the very next month. I have often used this method for self-motivation with myself. If I have a goal of signing 2 seminar contracts in the next 3 weeks, I'll often get out a pad of paper and ask, how would I get 10 contracts signed in 3 weeks? Inflating my goal puts me at a different level of thinking, and because I'm solving the problem of 10, I always get at least 2. If you want to really get some fresh motivational ideas, try expanding your goal. Blow it up until it scares you. Then proceed in your thinking as if it's a must that you achieve it. Remember that this is just a self-contained game, not a promise to anyone else, but it's a game that's fun to play because it works. Give yourself flying lessons. We need heroes in our lives. They are not a sign of weakness. They are a source of strength. Without heroes, said Bernard Malamud, we are all plain people and we don't know how far we can go. Heroes show us what's possible for a human being to accomplish. Therefore, heroes are very useful to anyone who is in the process of finally understanding self-motivation, but unless we consciously select our heroes in order to use them as inspiration, we simply end up envying great people instead of emulating them. When used properly, a hero can be an enriching source of energy and inspiration. You don't have to have just one hero either. Choose a number of them, put their pictures up, become an expert on their lives, collect books about them. My youngest sister, Cindy, as a shy little girl, always admired Amelia Earhart. Not long ago, after she had reached her 30s, she revealed to me that she had been taking flying lessons. I was stunned. A few weeks after that, the family went out to a little airport outside of town to watch her fly her first solo. I was so scared, said Cindy, that my mouth and throat went completely dry. Flying has nothing to do with what Cindy does for a living. She just took lessons and learned to pilot a plane because of the impression that her hero, Amelia Earhart, made on her as a little girl. We grow into that which we admire, said Emmett Fox. Before he became a famous author, Napoleon Hill was struggling as a writer and a speaker. He had a friend whose restaurant business was not doing well, and Hill offered to give free motivational speeches at the restaurant one night a week to help his friend increase his business. The speeches helped his friend a little, but they helped Hill a lot. He began to gain a large following. When I read about that part of Hill's life, it gave me an idea. At the time, I wanted to be a full-time speaker and I didn't know where to begin. I would done a few seminars and talks here and there, but there was no pattern or purposeful direction to it. I decided to emulate Hill. I began putting on a free, open to the public workshop every Thursday night at the company where I was working as a marketing director. At first, the workshops were not well attended. I had to spend part of the week begging people to come. Once the audience was 2 people, but week by week, the workshops' reputation grew and my own experience grew along with it. Soon, we had large audiences waiting to get it on Thursday night. I created that little free workshop with putting me into full-time public speaking. Was it an original idea? No, I stole it. I copied a hero of mine. But our awareness of the choice involving heroes is vital for self-creation. We can envy them or we can emulate them. The best use of heroes is not to just be in awe of them, but to learn something from them, to let their lives inspire us. They are only people like we are. What distinguishes them from us is the great levels they have reached in self-motivation. To passively adore them is to insult our own potential. Instead of looking up to our heroes, it is much more beneficial to look into them. Hold your vision accountable. It's not what a vision is, says Robert Fritsch. It's what a vision does. What does your vision do? Does it give you energy? Does it make you smile? Does it get you up in the morning? When you are tired, does it take you that extra mile? A vision should be judged by these criteria, the criteria of power and effectiveness. What does it do? Robert Preece is widely quoted in Peter Senge's business masterpiece, The Fifth Discipline. Preece is a former musician who has taken the basic principles of creativity in music composition and applied them to creating successful professional lives. Life gets good, he argues, when we get clear on what we want to create. Most people spend most of their working hours trying to make problems go away. This lifelong crusade to solve one's problems is a negative and reactive existence. It sells us short and leaves us at the end of life or at the end of the day with, at best, the double negative feeling of fewer problems. There is a profound difference between problem solving and creating. Fritz points out in The Path of Least Resistance. Problem solving is taking action to have something go away, the problem. Creating is taking action to have something come into being, the creation. Most of us have been raised in a tradition of problem solving and have little real exposure to the creative process. Step 1 in the creative process is having a vision of what you want to create. Without this vision, there is no way to create. Without this vision, you are only problem eliminating, which is a double negative. It's impossible to feel positive about a life based on a double negative. So, the way to alter your thinking is to notice when you are drifting into, what do I want to get rid of? And mentally replace that thinking with, what do I want to bring into being? When Fritz says that we have been raised in a tradition of problem solving, he is almost understating. He is almost understating it. We are programmed and wired to think that way every day. Notice the thinking of people as they approach a challenge, even a challenge as small as an upcoming meeting with other people. Here is what I hope doesn't happen. One will say, well, here is how you can avoid that. Someone else will helpfully say, the only problem we have is this. A third person will say, attempting to make the meeting seem less frightening. Notice that now here was there the question, what would we like to bring into being as a result of this meeting? Whether the situation is as small as a meeting or as large as your whole life, the most useful question you can ask yourself is, what do I want to bring into being? It's a beautiful question because it makes no reference to problems or obstacles. It implies pure creativity. It puts you back on the positive side of life. My friend Steve Hardison made an observation about self-motivation that I have always remembered and agreed with. It's just 1/3, he said. Motivational teachers repeat it many different ways, but it's just 1/3. It's a binary system. Are you on or are you off? Are you positive or are you negative? Are you creating or are you reacting? Are you on or are you off? Are you live or are you deaf? Are you day or are you night? Are you in or are you out? Is you is or is you and? And there is nothing more motivational to flip your binary switch to on than a clear vision of what it is that you really want. What do you want to bring into being? It doesn't matter what that vision is or how often it changes. It only matters, what that vision does. If your vision isn't getting you up in the morning, then make up another one. Keep at it until you develop a vision that's so colorful and clear that it puts you in action just to think about it. Build your power base. Knowledge is power. What you know is your power base. It's the battery you run on. You need to charge it constantly and consciously. Who do you want to be in charge of your what you know? News directors, radio desk jockeys, the office gossip, tabloid newspaper editors, or pessimistic family member. Unless we consciously decide to build our own knowledge base with a sense of direction to it, then we will be programmed totally by random input. Feeling miserable and alienated from life is caused by not being in control of what we know. Misery and alienation are not laid upon us by fate, wrote Colin Wilson. They are due to the failure of the ego to accept its role as the controller of consciousness. All our experiences of happiness and intensity force the same conviction upon us, for they involve a sense of mastery. You can be the master of your own fate. You can make choices all day long about what you are going to learn and what you are not going to learn. What you are reading over there, someone may ask you, "Oh, it's just something I found in the trash," you might say. And it might seem harmless enough to read something you found in the wastebasket because there was nothing else nearby, but whole lives are shaped that way. The computer term, GIGO, garbage in, garbage out, is even truer for the human biocomputer than it is for mechanical computers. Take control of what you know. The more you know about what motivates you, the easier it is to motivate yourself. The more you know about the human brain, the less trouble you have operating it. Knowledge is power. Respect yours and build on it. Connect truth to beauty. I hate reading motivational material that thunders at me about the importance of integrity and honesty for their own sake. Somehow that always seems to turn me off because the writers come off like angry preachers and teachers, hardly inspiring. I'm always inspired better by things that are made to look interesting and fun. I'm always taken in by a promise of life being more beautiful and rarely taken in by a promise of life being more righteous and proper. To me, the best case to make for honesty is how beautiful it is, how clean and clear it makes the journey from current reality to the dream. When people know exactly where they are, they can go somewhere from there. But being lost is a function of dishonesty. And when we are lost or dishonest, anywhere we go from there is wrong. When we start with a false reading, there is no direction home. Like Bob Dylan's Rolling Stone, we don't know who we are, we feel at the core like a complete unknown. Truth, on the other hand, is clear, complete, and compellingly vivid. It is solid and is strong, so it can hold us steady as we climb. Truth, said poet John Keats, is beauty. The more honest we are with others and ourselves about current reality, the more energy and focus we gather. We don't have to keep track of what we told one person or what we told another. One of the best and most positive explanations of the beauty of personal integrity was expressed by Nathaniel Branden in the 6 pillars of the self-esteem. Branden, unlike most writers on the subject, sees truth and integrity as a positive part of the process of self-esteem. His point is not that we owe it to other people's sense of morality to be honest, but that we owe it to ourselves. One of the great self-deceptions, said Branden, is to tell oneself, only I will know. Only I will know that I am a liar. Only I will know that I am deal unethically with people who trust me. Only I will know that I have no intention of honoring my promise. The implication is that my judgment is unimportant and that only the judgment of others counts. Branden's writing on personal integrity is inspiring because it's directed at creating a happier and a stronger self, not at a universal appeal for morality. One of the ways we describe a work of art that is sloppy and unfinished is as a mess. The problem with lying or lying by omission is that it leaves everything so incomplete, in a mess. Truth always completes the picture, any picture. And when a picture is complete, whole, and integrated, we see it as beautiful. I will even hear about people, usually people who you can't believe about anything, described as a mess. And conversely, a person who you can always count on to be honest with you is often referred to as a beautiful person. Truth and beauty become impossible to separate. Truth leads you to a more confident level in your relationships with others and with yourself. It diminishes fear and increases your sense of personal mastery. Lies and half-truths will always weigh you down, whereas truth will clear up your thinking and give you the energy and clarity needed for self-motivation. Read yourself a story. Abraham Lincoln used to drive his law partners to distraction. Every morning, he would come into his office and read the daily newspaper aloud to himself. They would hear him in the next room reading in a booming voice. Why did Lincoln do his morning reading aloud? He had discovered that he remembered and retained twice as much when he read aloud than he read silently. And what he did remember, he remembered for a much longer period of time. Perhaps it was because Lincoln was employing a second sense, the sense of hearing, and a second activity, the activity of speaking, which made his reading so memorable to him. Anytime you have an opportunity to read something that is important to you, try reading it aloud and see if you don't make twice the impression on yourself. When you discover something you want to remember and draw upon in the future, read it aloud. Steve Chandler, one of the most successful business consultants I have ever known, credits one origin of his success to when he was a struggling young man without money or a clue about where he wanted to go. Then one day he came across Napoleon Hill's enormous book, Law of Success, and read the entire volume aloud. My favorite piece of writing to read aloud is chapter 16 of Ozzie Mandino's The Greatest Salesman in the World. Here is a part of it, which you may now read silently to yourself. However, if you want a real shot of adrenaline to your spirit, I recommend you Mark this page, and when you are alone, read it aloud like Lincoln. I will act now. I will act now. I will act now. Henceforth, I will repeat these words again and again, each hour, each day, every day, until the words become a habit, as my breathing and the actions which follow become as instinctive as the blinking of my eyelids. With these words, I can condition my mind to perform every act necessary for my success. With these words, I can condition my mind to meet every challenge. Laugh for no reason. Become a performer, be an actor and a singer. Act like you already feel like you want to feel. Don't wait until the feeling motivates you. It could be a long wait. American philosopher William James put it very clearly. We do not sing because we are happy. We are happy because we sing. Most of us believe an emotion, such as happiness, comes first. Then we do whatever we do in reaction to that particular emotion. Not so, insisted James. The emotion arises simultaneously with the doing of the act. So, if you want to be enthusiastic, you can get there by acting as if you are already enthusiastic. Sometimes it takes a minute, sometimes it skips a beat, but it always works if you stay with it. No matter how ridiculous you feel doing it, feel ridiculous. If you want to be happy, find the happiest song you know and sing it. It works. Not always in the first few moments, but if you keep at it, it works. Just fake it until you make it. Soon, your happy singing will show you how much control you do have over your own emotions. Zen monks do a laughing meditation in which they all gather in a circle and get ready to laugh. At the stroke of a certain hour, the teacher hits a gong and all the monks begin to laugh. They have to laugh whether or not they feel like it. But after a few moments, the laughter becomes contagious. Soon, all the monks are laughing genuinely and heartily. Children do this too. They start giggling for no reason, often at the dinner table or some other forbidden setting, and the giggling itself makes them laugh. The truth is this: laughter itself can make you laugh. The secret of happiness is hidden inside that last sentence. But adults aren't always comfortable with this. Adults want kids to have bad reasons for laughing. Adults want kids to have reasons for laughing. As I used to drive my children long distances to visit relatives, I would get most irritated when they began laughing and giggling in the back seat without reason. I developed a backstroke swing to curb the laughter. Why are you laughing? I would shout. You have no reason to be laughing. This is a dangerous highway and I'm trying to drive here. But others, like me, might want to get back that appreciation for joyful spontaneity. We might want to confront the question, what is the one thing that most makes me feel like singing? And then know the answer, singing. What most gets you in the mood to dance? Dancing. The next time you ask someone to dance and they say, I don't feel like dancing, you might reply, that's because you are not dancing.